Oh boy. So chat, I'm casually scrolling through Twitter. I think it was like a couple nights ago or something like that. And I see this video stumble upon my feed. And I'm like, oh, what dumb shit is Anna Kasparian saying today? And so let's start by reading the caption of this Twitter user, Leftward Bound. It says, so Anna Kasparian is now acting as a press secretary for Project 2025. Real home of progressive stuff happening here. What has happened to TYT? What the fuck has happened to TYT over the course of the past year? Like, they've completely lost the plot at this point, especially Anna. But what are we talking about here? Chat. This video is essentially playing defense for Project 2025. You wouldn't expect something like that from a progressive media network, but that's exactly what's happening in this video. If you don't believe me, let me go ahead and play this video for you right now. So without further ado,
play that shit!
Here we go.
There's other stuff. And like, I hesitate to even bring this up because people are hell-bent on being scared about Project 2025. But
as people should be. We'll get into a little bit in a second here about what Project 2025 is, because I've been looking for an opportunity to kind of go over it on stream with you guys. And so I found a summarized video that we're going to react to in a second here that kind of summarizes it very briefly. There's so much to go over. And there's definitely like other sources you can take a look at to get more details on it. There's a great video by Legal Eagle that goes over it in a summarized fashion. I think it's like a 20 to 30 minute video. Highly recommend checking that out if you haven't already. Or if you want to go into the nitty gritty of it, a fellow streamer known as Riverboat Jack, shout out to Riverboat Jack. Riverboat Jack has been doing exceptional coverage on Project 2025. So if you want to go and check out their stream, they've been doing some great work when talking about this. But this is something that we on the left should be worried about. Not even just us on the left, but if you're an American citizen, you should be worried about Project 2025. Okay? So this notion that like, oh, people are like ridiculously scared of this thing. No, you should be. You absolutely should be. This thing is talking about taking people's rights away. This thing is talking about essentially implementing a dictatorship in the United States. Like, I know that sounds extreme, but if you know anything about Project 2025, you know I'm not selling you bullshit right now. But anyway, let's continue.
let me just be clear about something. There are all sorts of allegations about the Heritage Foundation's document, which again, they release every election cycle. This is the first time we have the Democratic Party specifically tying it to Donald Trump, because some of the people associated with the Heritage Foundation used to be in Trump's administration. Okay.
I mean, that would demonstrate that there are ties to Donald Trump, wouldn't it? When you have people who were part of Donald Trump's administration, who are part of this project, that would demonstrate that there are ties to Donald Trump, no? Am I missing something? I don't understand.
Okay, does that mean that Trump is, you think Trump respects anyone who is in his administration? But okay, let's talk about the specific allegations that we've heard about what's in Project 2025, which is a 900-page document. The media knows that most Americans, they don't have the bandwidth to sit down and read a 900-page document. So they get to say whatever they want about it. They get to claim that it includes all sorts of things that it doesn't even actually say. So for instance, Vice President Harris said on July 23rd that Project 2025 called for cutting Social Security. It was not a one-time mistake. She also said at a July 11th, 2024 campaign event, Project 2025 includes a plan to cut Social Security. Well, NewsGuard, which does a pretty good job in fact-checking these types of claims on both sides, took a look and they found out that the Project 2025 policy playbook titled Mandate for Leadership, the Conservative Promise, does not even mention any proposed changes to Social Security.
Okay, here's the thing, right? It'd be one thing if this was presented as like, hey, you know, we're not defending Project 2025 or, you know, anything like that. We're just correcting the record here. There was a little bit of, you know, lefty misinformation going on here, right? That would be one thing. But like the way that she's presenting this, it comes out as if it's like a full-on, full-throated defense of Project 2025 and something that nobody should be worried about whatsoever, when that's not the case, okay? Now, is it true that maybe they don't specifically mention Social Security? Probably. But the thing is, it talks about taking away entitlements from American citizens which could potentially include Social Security. So it doesn't matter if it doesn't specifically mention Social Security. The fact that it's advocating for taking away entitlements that you, as an American citizen, have a right to have access to, it's talking about taking those things away. That could include Social Security, and that is something you absolutely should be concerned about.
Okay, great. Left-leaning news outlet, thegrio.com, advanced the myth that Project 2025 proposes banning Muslims. The mandate for leadership includes no mention of a Muslim ban or any religion or ethnicity-specific entry ban.
Okay, so again, if this was just about like, hey, let's clear up, a little bit of misinformation, okay, that's one thing, right? Maybe it doesn't specifically mention it in this way, but they're talking about engaging in acts of mass deportation, which could include people like Muslims, for example. So it's almost like playing word semantics of like, hey, it doesn't say it specifically like this, but what it does say very much under umbrella terms could include these things. And again, it's one thing to just like correct the record and say, hey, you know what, just giving you a heads up, this is something that we should be worried about, but I just want to clear the air that like what doesn't specifically say this, however, this is what it's referring to, etc., etc. That wouldn't be so bad. But she literally starts this clip by saying this is something that everybody is losing their minds about, and nobody should be worried about it whatsoever. Gayfesh in the chat says Trump's 2017 Muslim ban was also not a Muslim ban, in that the ban didn't say we're banning Muslims. They just happened to specifically only target Muslim majority countries. That's a good point. And that's what I'm saying, where maybe they may not say the specific verbiage that's being used in these statements, but it's like a blanket term that could easily include those things. It's ridiculous to defend this stuff. So what is it that Anna Kasparian is defending? Okay, I'm sure most of the people watching the stream probably already know what Project 2025 is, but I know out there are some people who probably aren't familiar. So I decided to take a look at this video here. This is by the Wall Street Journal, Project 2025, the radical conservative plan to reshape America under Trump. So we're going to take a look at this video. We're going to give our thoughts on it as we go along. So without further ado,
play that shit!
Here we go.
This 920-page document would usher in the most conservative executive branch in modern American history, if enacted. It's called Project 2025. Its pages offer new administrations a blueprint for executing a right-wing agenda, from purging the government of thousands of civil servants to dismantling the Department of Education.
We do have to initiate.
I mean, just that alone is like an insane thing to think about. Dismantling the government and Trump being allowed to install his own sort of loyalist to do his bidding for him, getting rid of the Department of Education, like that just seems like, why would you ever want to do that? But these are the things that Project 2025 and so many other terrible things, this is what it's advocating for.
The largest mass deportation project in the history of the...
As Mr. Z Series in the chat says, Project 2025 is a mass manifesto for fascism. Absolutely.
This country.
Former President Donald Trump has distanced himself from Project 2025, but Democrats aren't buying it.
Project 2025 would roll back our fundamental freedoms, undermine our democracy, and gut checks and balances.
Here's a closer
I think the funniest thing about it is like you have like Donald Trump on Truth Social basically publicly saying that he's not associated with like Project 2025 and stuff like that. But in other statements, he will publicly sort of endorse the actions of the Heritage Foundation, which, by the way, are behind Project 2025. So which one is it? Are you not associated with Project 2025? Or are you associated with and endorse the actions of the Heritage Foundation who are behind Project 2025? You can't have it both ways, Donald.
Look at the four main pillars of this radical plan and how they could transform the American government as we know it.
One of the things that's interesting about Project 2025 is the tone. You hear the term woke mentioned dozens of times, radical mentioned dozens.
I never thought I would see the day that, like, when you think of woke, you think of like some like losers on the internet just spewing the term woke, right? Like when you see somebody like Jeremy from The Quartering saying woke, you think, okay, that makes sense, you know? When you hear somebody like, you know, the Geeks and Gamers folks saying the term woke, you think, okay, yeah, that fits, all right? Never in my wildest dreams did I ever think I would hear, you know, people in government, people who are running for public office. Did I ever imagine I would hear them using cringe terms like woke? We're in clown world, chat.
Of times. It's remarkably driven by culture war politics.
Heathen Granny in the chat says this has some malicious evil plans for women and minorities in the country. Yeah, there's some really fucked up stuff in here. Obviously, not everybody has the time to read. What did it say? It was a 900-page document or something like that. Not everybody has the time to read that shit, okay? I can even openly admit to you guys, I haven't read that shit either. But based on the coverage I've seen about it, this is something we need to be genuinely concerned about. Okay, this isn't something that we should just, this is that stupid conservative project, no big deal. No, this is something that could very seriously affect the future of this nation. We shouldn't just brush this off as some like, you know, it's not like some crazy conspiracy theory. This is like actual things that the conservatives want to make happen in this country.
Project 2025 is designed as a government in waiting if Trump or any conservative president returns to office.
It's hard to believe that woke started as a brain rot meme that conservatives just applied to anything progressive. Literally that. It literally is. I never thought I would see somebody running for president of the fucking United States talking about how shit is too woke. It's very bizarre. It's very fucking bizarre.
It's the brainchild of the Heritage Foundation.
Oh yeah, true. Not to mention the 14 hours of leaked training footage. There are training videos, kind of like the training videos you might see if you start a job with a new employer or something. They might sit you in like a side office or something and make you watch training videos about your job. There are training videos like that for people hoping to become part of Donald Trump's administration. Training videos that they're having these people watch in preparation for Project 2025. And again, I mentioned Riverboat Jack earlier in the stream. Highly recommend checking out her coverage of this because she has reacted to, I think, just about every one of these videos, if not at least most of them. And it's the most bizarre stuff, for sure. The buzzword changes. The concept remains the same. Political correctness, social justice warriors, woke. It's all the same stuff. Yeah, it's just the same shit, just rebranded. But again, these are like terms that you totally expect in like an anti-woke like internet setting. You don't expect people who are in charge of, deciding public policy to be uttering these statements. Yeah, that's what we're having. That's what we're experiencing now. It's so insane. It's utter insanity.
A conservative think tank and lobbying group that has helped staff Republican administrations since the Reagan era.
We cover literally every public policy issue in Project 2025, from domestic policy to foreign policy.
Kevin Roberts is the president of the Heritage Foundation and one of the driving forces behind the project.
All Project 2025 is trying to do is to be a corrective to the liberal nonsense that has been so insidious inside the executive branch for the last half century.
The Heritage Foundation says Project 2025 is backed by more than 100 conservative organizations and a $22 million budget.
So I think the size, scale, and sophistication of Project 2025 is unprecedented.
The project has 4 main pillars: a policy plan, a personnel database, an online academy, and a playbook for the president's first 180 days in office.
We can be ready to hit the ground running on day 1 of the next administration.
The first pillar is a policy agenda that focuses on dismantling the so-called administrative state, or what some conservatives call the deep state.
Either the deep state destroys America, or we destroy the deep state.
The deep state nonsense just sounds like Alex Jones tier conspiracy theory garbage, which is essentially what it is, in all honesty.
For Project 2025, dismantling the administrative state means purging the civil workforce.
Woke isn't even a negative term, but conservatives twisted it to mean something negative. Woke actually means to be aware of social injustice by they think that is bad. Yeah, exactly. If you would acknowledge like the social injustices that happen to like various different minority groups and stuff like that, that's a bad thing. You know, we just have to sweep those issues under the rug and pretend like they don't exist. And if you do acknowledge the existence of these problems, then you're woke, and that's something that is a very bad thing that you should be shamed for. Like it's really ridiculous.
Of tens of thousands of federal employees and replacing them with conservative pre-vetted picks.
There is a concentration not just of power, but a concentration of radical leftist ideology in these employees. Hopefully, we will see over the next 10 to 20 years the elimination of entire cabinet departments.
The plan would dismantle the Department of Homeland Security.
That's crazy to me that they're like openly talking about it. It's almost like, you know, the meme, they're saying the quiet part out loud, but they're like literally like admitting we want to dismantle the government as it exists today. Okay, the government that's put in place to protect a lot of your rights and freedoms that, you know, this country celebrates so much, the freedoms that we have. They want to dismantle the government in its current form that protects those things. And they're openly admitting that publicly to you before your very eyes. It's nuts.
The Department of Education entirely and transform the FBI into a political task force that is accountable to the president.
But the leadership of the FBI has been awful and rotten and not transparent for a long time. It is very important that Congress reestablish its purview over the FBI generally, its jurisdiction.
To give a sense of how radical this is, the FBI is an organization that has never been run by a Democrat. And so this is an organization that in its bones is a fairly conservative organization, and where now you have right-wing voices saying that it should be eliminated.
The playbook also...
That's crazy, right? So the FBI isn't conservative enough for the conservatives, apparently. Do you understand how ridiculous that sounds? Like, it's nuts.
Outlines a plan to bring many federal agencies, like the Department of Justice, under more direct presidential control.
What Project 2025 articulates...
Am I wrong in saying I hear coping and seething? I admit this is scary. I mean, if you're talking about Anna Kasparian's take on how this isn't something we should be worried about, then yes, there's a lot of coping and seething going on in that regard.
You are coping,
because this absolutely is something we should be worried about. This is something we should be talking about and informing others about. Because it's a serious issue, okay? If Donald Trump gets elected, they're going to implement this shit. This is a problem.
Coping so hard.
Like, what is so wrong with treating everyone with equality? Nothing, Lady Zubat. Absolutely nothing. Or at least that's how it should be.
Is the idea that the president should be the one directing the activities of the Department of Justice, even if that means that the president will not be investigated, or that the DOJ will be sent to attack the president's political enemies.
I mean, that sounds like a dictatorship. Like, the president could do whatever the fuck they want, including if it's illegal, and like, because they're in charge, they can't be pursued for it. That's insanity.
We will root out the communists, Marxists, fascists, and the radical left thugs that live like vermin within the confines of our country.
The Heritage Foundation says it wants to ensure that what remains of this whittled-down federal bureaucracy is conservative, not just for the next president, but for a long time to come. Pillar 2, Personnel Database. The Heritage Foundation has already contracted the technology company Oracle to build this database, kind of like a conservative networking platform.
We've recruited Americans all over the country, and so we've had well over 11,000.
So this is literally talking about like recruiting yes men to serve, you know, President Trump and do his bidding, basically. That's what this is referring to.
People who've applied to be considered by the next president and his administration.
Trump really emphasizes loyalty, and you see those practices now being adopted by Project 2025, where you fill out a form that essentially indicates if you are loyal to President Trump or not.
Once they're fully vetted, they can move on to Pillar 3, an online presidential administration academy that would train future bureaucrats in conservative values and governing.
This is where those leaked training videos come into play, pretty much.
We want these people who are competent, who have great credentials, to be prepared.
Maurice Bear says, isn't it kind of funny? Trump talks about communism and the DOJ is investigating right-wing figures for ties to Russia. Yeah, it is pretty funny, isn't it? It's pretty damn funny. And we're definitely going to be talking about that pretty soon here too. But yeah, it's pretty wild when you think about it.
Prepared for the specific job that they will have.
Project 2025 provides detailed policy plans for dozens of government agencies, outlining ways to create de facto abortion bans, slash federal investment in renewable energy, and roll back environmental regulations. Here, you can see several...
So basically every policy that the left pushes because they think that it benefits society or they think it benefits the rights of American citizens and whatnot, basically all of that, they want to undo all of it, okay? Literally talking about taking away a lot of your rights and freedoms and a lot of the protections that are in place to protect our environment, to protect workers' rights, to protect a ton of things that people come to expect from the freedoms that we are granted in America. It's really wild shit.
Sections dedicated to consolidating U.S. immigration agencies and expanding their power.
Number one, we have to close the border. We do have to initiate the largest mass deportation project in the history of this country. The 12 million people who've come in as illegal aliens.
Just saying Richard Nixon, a Republican, established the Environmental Protection Agency? Really? I gotta be honest, I wasn't aware of that. That's interesting.
Must be sent back to their native countries.
But how legally sound are these policy proposals, and what would they look like in practice? That's where Pillar 4 comes in, the playbook for the first 180 days of a conservative presidency. A big part of the plan is modeled off of a Trump-era policy called Schedule F.
Schedule F is originally an executive order that Trump signed that would allow him to turn thousands of career civil servants into political appointees that he could then fire if they displeased him in any way. And then have to be more...
That literally sounds like a dictatorship, okay? You have to be loyal to Donald Trump or you're out of a job. You get out of here, okay? You either get in line or you get the fuck out, okay? That's literally what that is. That sounds like a dictatorship. Am I wrong, chat? One in the chat if you agree that that's what that sounds like. It's insanity. It's utter insanity. Okay, so last month I had a medical procedure and had to take misoprostol. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. My apologies. The second medication for an abortion. 2 hours before that, I'm not pregnant or having an abortion, but a different procedure that is part of reproductive health care and needed that medication. Who knew that these things had more than one use? Sorry, ignore me. I'm just randomly ranting. I mean, but that's the kind of things that they want to take people's rights away in regards, right? Like those kind of things, like reproductive health stuff, among many other rights they want to strip us of. And Project 2025 will help them do that.
More responsive to a president who in the past has shown a willingness to fire people for disloyalty rather than for competence.
The Biden administration reversed this order in 2021, but Trump has vowed to bring it back if he is reelected.
First, I will immediately reissue my 2020 executive order restoring the president's authority to remove rogue bureaucrats, and I will wield that power very aggressively.
I think
he's literally admitting that he's going to serve the presidency as if he was a dictator. Like that, when he says that, that's exactly what he means.
Schedule F is not just possible, but it's certainly an incredible priority of a second Trump administration. The problem with Schedule F is that there is no real limitation to the number of people who could be converted.
Underpinning many of Project 2025's...
The fact that this election is a nail-biter between a normal person and a felon that's going to be a dictator is so insane. Yeah, this is why, like, I mean, obviously, you know, elections are important to begin with. Go out there and vote, okay? It's important to have your vote be counted and to have your voice heard. But this election is probably one of the most important elections that this country has had in a long time, okay? Go out there and vote, because this shit can happen if you don't.
Policy proposals is a legal principle called the unitary executive theory. It is based on a clause in the Constitution that says the executive power is vested in the president.
Project 2025 assumption is that the president has something called unitary executive authority. This gives him enormous untested powers to essentially do whatever he wants and reduces the power of Congress to check those powers.
Conservative Supreme Court justices, like Justice Samuel Alito, have signaled support for the unitary executive theory and skepticism of federal agencies.
The current Supreme Court has shown itself to be very open to claims that the president has enormous executive authority and so should be able to hire and fire people at will.
In July, the Supreme Court granted presidents immunity for any official acts taken while in office.
That is insane to me that that's even a thing, but that's a very real thing that happened. Basically, anything Donald Trump does when he's serving in office as president, they're saying that he can't be charged or convicted for that stuff. It's just, he could do whatever as long as he's in the office of the presidency, he could do whatever the fuck he wants and suffer no repercussions for his actions. That's what the fuck?
Experts say this decision could set the stage for expanding presidential power.
Trump would be looking at a Supreme Court that would be quite sympathetic to his claims that he has extraordinary executive power.
Our Supreme Court is already fucked. I mean, in its current state, yeah, definitely.
Far more than previous presidents, and would allow him to do things that previous Supreme Courts would have checked with other presidents.
Other legal scholars say the unitary executive theory and some of Project 2025's more radical proposals simply aren't realistic.
It will inevitably draw dozens of lawsuits if all of its policies are implemented. So you cannot eliminate an agency without Congress agreeing to that. Congress has the power to create agencies and to eliminate agencies unless the Supreme Court suddenly grants new power to the president.
Project 2025.
I mean, that's why he tries to install people that are like his yes men that will help him make that possible, because he wants to have that level of authority.
Has garnered increased attention on social media.
Project 2025.
Project 2025.
Project 2025.
As Democrats shine a spotlight on its sweeping proposals.
Project 2025 will destroy America. Look it up.
I think the craziest thing about it is they don't even make an effort to hide this. Like we're watching in this video, we're watching somebody who is a part of Project 2025 openly admit the intentions that they're trying to do with this, right? There's literally a website for Project 2025 where you can look at publicly available information about all of this stuff. They're not even trying to hide the insanity that they're trying to do with this.
This agenda is a fascist authoritarian dictator's dream. And we know that that is exactly who Donald Trump wants to be.
Democratic Congressman Dan Goldman is part of the Stop Project 2025 task force.
So what we are trying to do is make sure that every American who is going to go to the ballot box on November 5th knows exactly what they will get if Donald Trump wins.
More recently, Trump made moves to distance himself from Project 2025. In a Truth Social post, he said he knew nothing about it, calling some of the proposals ridiculous and abysmal.
So even he acknowledges that like associating directly with this thing would be bad from a PR perspective. So even he's like, I'm not publicly associating with this thing. But again, he will in other statements praise the Heritage Foundation, and the Heritage Foundation are behind Project 2025. They're the ones that are pushing Project 2025. So again, he's like, he wants his cake, but he's trying to like eat it too. Like, oh no, I'm not associated with this thing. But he's praising the organization that's pushing it. It doesn't make sense, okay? No matter how you slice it, it doesn't make sense, chat.
Goldman says these statements are part of a larger political strategy.
So many of his former top officials are at the head of Project 2025. It is a political calculation that he's making because he recognizes that the American people do not support this extremist agenda.
Right.
President Trump is trying to win a presidential campaign, and we understand that he has to make political considerations. Given the millions of dollars that the left has spent attacking Project 2025 because they have nothing else to run on, I wasn't surprised to see President Trump's statement, nor are there any hard feelings.
Back in 2022.
I mean, if they were to run simply on opposing Project 2025 alone, I'd say that that gives them plenty of things to run against. Okay, because like this is a very concerning project that plans to implement very concerning things, stripping people of their rights and giving the president an amount of control that would essentially make him a dictator. Like that's a lot to push up against.
2. Trump spoke to the Heritage Foundation and was direct about its role in crafting future policy.
This is a great group, and they're going to lay the groundwork.
See, this is what I was talking about. He'll say he's not associated with Project 2025, but then he praises the work of the Heritage Foundation.
Detailed plans for exactly what our movement will do and what your movement will do when the American people give us a colossal mandate to save America. And that's coming. That's coming.
Trump's own policy platform closely resembles many of Project 2025's proposals too, from cracking down on immigration to blocking gender-affirming healthcare and stopping a woke and weaponized government.
Given the persuasiveness of these ideas, the overlap that exists between Trump's stated priorities and the priorities of the project, that will all sort itself out. It really is the conservative playbook, not just for the next year or two, but hopefully for the next generation.
Jesus. So, and keep in mind, chat, like this is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to Project 2025. There's so much more to be concerned about with this. This is just a taste of the kind of things that are a part of Project 2025. So I have to ask the question, Anna Kasparian, you claim to be a progressive. Why are you trying to downplay the severity of how concerning this should be? This is something that we as progressives and we as leftists, we should absolutely be concerned about. Not even just on the left. Everybody who is an American citizen should be concerned about Project 2025. So for you to downplay it and try and make it seem like it's really not that big of a deal is utter insanity to me. What the fuck is wrong with you? Seriously.